Bonjour, morning. Can you hear me? French, English, what do you prefer? I'll do English. So, I work at Sky. Sky is a company which is British, which is a provider of pay TV, broadband, telephony as well. If you're French, you may consider it to be a combination of Canal Plus and Free, for example. And it's a very diverse, company in that respect because the services we provide are very diverse. The reason I'm here today actually is because we use React a lot and increasingly a lot more, and also we just started using GraphQL. So why actually do we use React and GraphQL? In fact, because there is such a diversity in the services we offer, we basically have the need to make sure that, especially now, we have a consistent customer experience. It wasn't the case before. There were a lot of different business units and teams which were providing their own pages, which were kind of mashed up into a sky.com. But the consistency wasn't always there. So this is one of the major initiatives that we're having today. And React for us is key in enabling this. So what does it mean exactly, for example? If we want to have also a personalized experience for a customer, we want to make sure, for example, that if they are a very sports enthusiast, that they can see, maybe a tile showing sports headlines. If it's the time to pay the bill, for example, it would be nice to just display, the amount and a link to pay, that kind of thing. And it's also to make sure that across the different business units, we use the same components, like a calendar, for example. If we book an engineer appointment in the shop side of things, it would be nice if the calendar looks the same if we want to change the appointment on the service side of things. So that's the reason why, actually. I think you can see here the kind of design we have. We have a lot of tiles, and that's the kind of dynamic experience we want to enable. These tiles can be completely dynamic in terms of content. So right now we have about 25% of Sky.com, which is under React. I think in about a couple of months it's going to be about 50% or so. I'm just roughly guessing. And we are just starting to use GraphQL. But then when I hear components, my biggest memory is back in those days in the 90s, there was this thing called component-based development. I don't know if many of you heard about it, but back in those days we were talking about software factories, component marketplaces, and so on. None of that happened, really. This is the EGB and DCOM, times. And do we know why this failed, actually? And that's what I'm going to talk about, actually. The reason, actually, it failed for some people is the fact that, there was this thing, and there was a term coined in those days, the network fallacies. So if we try, actually, to distribute objects on the network and make local calls make network calls look like they are local, that kind of, introduce a leaky abstractions because the network is always, something that you need to deal with. So the leaky abstraction is the fact that, the assumptions we make is that it's always there. There's no latency. There is, infinite bandwidth. This is not the case. So the idea back then to use objects as if they were distributed on the network was the approach which I think made it fail. Really, this is actually not the network itself or the fallacies of the network. It's the fact that we tried to distribute objects and we kept an object-oriented approach. So the reason why it was actually a failure to use the object model is because it introduces a lot of couplings. You needed to have the same runtime model for the objects so you can talk across the network. You need to share the same type model as well. If you talk about an account, it should be the same thing across the wire as well. And you need to share, the definition of what an account is. Back in those days, I think there was very much the mindset. Today, we'll think like, yeah, you're crazy. So again, I think this didn't really work. And what happened is that the web services came around, and it was actually the savior of the day. I don't think we really understood what made web services, work. Actually, I think I'm going to try to explain that. But the point is, I don't think we really understood why the component approach before failed. In my opinion, it's because we tried to use web protocols, which forced us to use to send data as strings instead of objects, actually. And that's really key here. We didn't try to do objects anymore. And the we still try to do OO stuff with SOAP and so on. Don't know if any of you try to do it, but nowadays nobody does. And I think in the end, REST put a term to the whole thing. REST won and put a term in this. The idea again is that I think what really happened is that we forgot the value of data. So again, if CBD failed, it's because data was not a first-class citizen in our architecture, in our platform. So this is kind of why I think today GraphQL and React have a chance to succeed where we failed earlier. If you look at it, the React approach of having a virtual DOM is just a reflection of the HTML, which is also data. It's like a specialized, DSL HTML. The DOM is just an optimization. I mean, the virtual DOM is just an optimization anyway. But because it's imperative on the browser side, we prefer having a data structure, which is a virtual DOM. Same for GraphQL. I mean, it's just about data, isn't it? We don't talk about functions, maybe for updates, but that's another story. So again, I believe that that's because we have focused on data that we have a better chance to succeed this time around to do components using React and GraphQL. By the way, many people consider declarative to be something to deal with functional programming. I think it's more about data, really. And I'll be even more controversial. I think functional programming, the value of it is more in data. I'll come to that in a minute. There are some open questions for us, because we're just starting using GraphQL in a large way, actually. So by nature, GraphQL crosses domain boundaries, the bounded context in DDD. So, for example, the logged-in customer in online service is one persona which could be a root within online service. But on the shop side of things, we may want to have as well the prospect as a root because it's not a logged-in customer. Maybe the customer isn't a customer yet. So again, what do we want to do here if we're a separate part of the organization that wants to implement their own GraphQL server in different technology possibly? Would the idea of having a proxy which brings those together be a good idea? Using introspection, for example, to reflect the overall GraphQL? We don't know yet. It's just so new, we don't have the best practices yet. So again, if you have got any ideas on this, please come talk to me. I'll be very happy. The key takeaways I'm trying to pass here is this, really. We actually overdone object orientation in the past. There is a slight risk to overdo functional programming today because I think we think too much in terms of functions. The value really is in the data, and I think the real balance in this industry will be achieved when we put data first as a first-class citizen of our architecture or our frameworks. Because when we get the data right, the functions just are self-evident. That's it for me. Did I mention we are hiring? And thank you.